Mark Ennis, ESPN Louisville. One of my absolute favorites is here, as is Brett Friedlander, Saturday Down South, ACC columnist. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Mark, do you have any interest in Brett and I getting a brief Hurricanes question in?
I can't contribute, but I can certainly observe with respect.
I thank you. All right, Brett, you have not complained much over the last several weeks about the Hurricanes. Frederick Anderson doing the job. Andrei Svechnikov, the guy. So are you pumped for the Eastern Conference Finals?
Not only am I pumped for the Eastern Conference Finals, I am looking forward to that Dallas-Carolina Cup final so that Freddie can shut down Mikkonen and Stankovic can score the cup-winning goal. That would be
delicious. It is, like, I joked around with somebody about this the other day. I'm like, we're headed for that. That would be like the juiciest possible storyline.
Adam, it wouldn't be boring.
nor is the way they play. Well, I'm glad you're on board. You're Team Freddie now, right?
Absolutely. Listen, I've got a correlation here. Do you remember back in 2022 when the Braves won the World Series and I spent the entire season complaining about Fresh Prince, right? Will Smith. And he won me a World Series, and so now I'm on Team Fresh Prince. So I'm on Team Freddie.
There you go. I don't remember the 2022 baseball season. All right, so we'll go back to Mark Ennis on this one. Coming out of ACC Media Days or ACC Spring Meetings in Amelia Island, Florida, what do you think the biggest issue for Jim Phillips to solve is?
For starting with me, look.
Yes, you.
I think heading off or doing whatever it is and making sure that it's visible, whatever it is, keeping the SEC and the Big Ten from basically just turning the entire college football playoff and postseason into whatever it is that they want it to be. And I think this is one of the thankless parts of being a conference commissioner in one of these situations. Is I think you're tasked with this with no real tools to do it. And you're definitely going to get the blame for it if you're not able to accomplish it. But I think with the memory of how the discussions went with the alliance, we'll call that, that sort of thing. He cannot afford, I think, to come away from whatever the final format with the college football playoff is looking impotent in this. And it's a pretty precarious situation to be in.
The funny thing is that the alliance was with the Big Ten as well at the time. And Kevin Warren was super two-faced about it. But, hey, look, college commissionership right now is essentially a whole bunch of CEOs backstabbing one another to get what it is that they need or they want. Brett, same question for you. What is Jim Phillips' biggest issue?
I think it's the same issue as Mark mentioned, but I think that the only way he can really approach this, and he mentioned the ill-fated coalition, but the only way to do this is strengthen numbers. And I think that Jim Phillips must get together with the Group of Five and the Big 12 and resolve to not agree to anything that involves automatic bids other than conference champions. Because when you agree to do that, whether it's 2 or 3, you basically set yourself up to be a second-class citizen who's just kind of hanging on to the invitational. So I think that the big thing, as Mark said, is to make sure that you come out of this in a position of strength rather than as somebody who's just kind of like riding the coattails of the SEC and the Big Ten, because there's not much else that the commissioner could do here, because to be competitive in both football and basketball, it's going to be up to the individual schools to put the financial commitment in for NIL that you get the players to be able to compete, because winning games is the only thing that is really going to help, and right now they're not winning enough.
I know it's going to sound weird, but part of me wants to see Jim Phillips become passive-aggressive about this and just say, you guys have dominated football like no conference in the history of the sport. I can't believe you're limiting yourself to 4 spots in this playoff when you could have all of them. if we just eliminated the automatic bids. Like, I'm not sure that wouldn't work in some ways. Mark, do you think that might have sway?
I don't know that would work necessarily, but I think maybe the better plan, and it's a cousin of the one you just made, is you might sort of, because look, who is wholly owned by ESPN? It's the ACC and it's the SEC. You might just start calling Greg Sankey and trying to sow division between the SEC and the Big Ten, and by gassing up the SEC to Greg Sankey, why are you agreeing to an equal number of bids with the Big Ten?
Right.
And I think that's a legitimate argument, honestly. It's conceivable to me far more often that the fourth team that might get some auto bid out of the Big Ten is nowhere near as good as the fourth team that's going to get one from the SEC. Correct. Why are you agreeing to equal standing with those guys? That might be the better, more strategic play, is to be like, why are we doing this? Why are you agreeing to limit yourself in the way you were saying by having the same number of guys where the fourth one is going to be what? Illinois or somebody like
Iowa.
that? Like, that might be the better play. Yeah, exactly.
Indiana.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh. It's just so bad. But I do wonder. Now, let me ask. I want to go. I'll go to Brett here. What role does the media, the college football media, play? And you guys are both, kind of. You're part of this. Mark, you're as much, Louisville media, but you're also national media. Brett, you cover the ACC and you cover sports other than football. Sure. And Division II baseball. But how culpable is the national media for not repeatedly calling out the greed and the power grabbing of these two conferences in this? Because I think if there's some public pressure applied, maybe it would work.
They play a huge role in this, and I kind of want to bring a kind of connection with the Hurricanes in there. It's kind of sort of like the whole boring hockey situation. It's a feeding frenzy, and you get a narrative, and I'm not saying that all national media members are lazy, but they tend to kind of hop onto the same narratives. And this, when you consider that a great deal of the college football media is located where? In the SEC footprint and in the Midwest where the Big Ten is. And the ACC has always kind of been a stepchild in this equation. Then you have this feeding frenzy, and I think it is a very large part of this. And there's a narrative, and it's not what it really needs to be.
Mark, yeah, and Adam, I'll add to that. I think one of the real dangers of letting this 4-4-2-2 model that they're talking about go through and ultimately become a reality is you're basically institutionalizing. I think this is kind of what Brett was saying earlier, saying to everybody they are twice as important as we are, and that your media coverage will all represent that. One of the most great wins around here ever is all the way back in 2002. Louisville beats Florida State. Kirk Herbstreit's on the call, and Louisville fans are like running on the field in water everywhere. It had rained for like a full day, and it's one of our favorites. Kirk Herbstreit is saying, "This is great. This is college football," and I don't think he thinks that anymore. And so, media has really changed in that regard, and this will only make it worse.
Mark Ennis is joining us, as well as Brett Friedlander here in the roundtable on a Friday. And we're going to take phone calls later. I can't believe we're going to do is take phone calls on the Hurricanes. The other thing that came out of Amelia Island for me, and maybe I look at it differently than other people, they had Deloitte there. They're trying to come up with math equations as how they can make basketball appear better, how they can improve net ratings, and how some of the metrics in football can be better. And I think they're doing it backwards. I understand. I think we should schedule differently. I've been saying this for a long time. We should not schedule with a formula. We should Jim Phillips should get down. It's like, who are our best football teams? I want them playing each other. Who are our best basketball teams? I want them playing each other. Who are the rivalries that we need to have for each individual school? I want those on TV. I would schedule for TV. I would schedule for fans. I would not give a damn about scheduling for metrics. Now, the non-conference stuff, yes, I will schedule for metrics. I would do that better. but it seems to me they're doing it backwards. Am I crazy, Mark, for thinking that they should just simply try to make their football and basketball better, and all of these numbers will take care of themselves?
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think your old partner, Joe Ovius, said kind of best. They're trying to solve a problem with math that's really just an HR problem. And Brett kind of said this at the beginning, like, at some point, this is about, are you just going to invest in your programs and support them at a level that will make them successful? ACC basketball, like these teams that are, Syracuse should be better than they are. Pitt, it should be better than it is. Like, there's no excuse for these teams to struggle the way that they have when we have seen them in our recent memory be far more competitive, far more nationally relevant, and that is all that you need. You know who doesn't really have these discussions about scheduling and all this sort of thing? The freaking SEC.
Right.
Like, they don't, because they just hired great coaches, and they support their programs, and they're good, and that solves all of your problems with a straight line.
Yeah, Florida didn't have a good basketball schedule this year, by the way. They just happened to be great. And the SEC schedule's down in football in non-conference every year. And it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Brett, you want to handle anything there before we have to go?
Yeah, I would like to say that I think, to your point, Adam, Clemson is the only team in the ACC that really gets it. The whole thing with the Notre Dame series is exactly what you're talking about, because they're going to get eyeballs because nobody attracts ratings the way Notre Dame does. They're also going to play a high-profile, whatever net rating in football is, opponent every year. And I think more teams in the ACC, at least the elite teams, we're talking about the Florida States, the Miamis, the Louisvilles, and hey, you know what, even Carolina, because they attract a lot of eyes too. I think those are the teams that need to start thinking in that way, because right now, just scheduling random home and homes with Tennessee or Mississippi State, unless you're going to win those games, and the ACC teams don't, where does that help you?
Why is Syracuse playing Tennessee? Yeah. Somebody's going to have to tell me that. Why Syracuse is playing Tennessee? Why do we need Syracuse, who is look, maybe they'll be in the middle of the league this year. They should not be playing Tennessee. You want to play an SEC school? Play Vanderbilt. Don't. That's bad scheduling. Virginia played Tennessee, right, last year?
Yeah,
why?
They got blasted.
Don't do it. We get hung up on these things. It makes me angry every year. I've just made myself angry in the middle of May. Mark, Canes over the Panthers, because the Panthers are going to beat Toronto in how many?
5.
5? That's
How about that?
That is outstanding. I
can read the room.
Brett, Canes over the Panthers in how many?
6.
I think the answer really is in 3. All right, Brett Friedlander, Saturday Down South, ACC columnist, and Mark Ennis, ESPN Louisville. I appreciate both of you guys coming on today. Be well. I'll see you soon.
Anytime.